immigration to foreign policy and the economy.
Dr. Maurice Sheppard is here from Madison College to try to break this all down this morning. Good morning, and thank you for waking up with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we talked a little bit about how the president's speech kind of started with a message of unity, but then it turned quickly to this. You called it a threat when it comes to the Russia investigation. Sure. You know, what do you make of that, and what's next, you think?
Yeah, well, the president made it very clear. I think his statement was along the lines of for there to be peace and legislation, there cannot be, he called it sort of war and investigation.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think it was a very veiled threat. I think it was a very direct one. What wasn't said in that statement was sort of how would that actually sort of play out. And I think if the president wanted to, he has the constitutional power to use the veto power to basically, not approve legislation, to stall once again funding bills and those sorts of things. So I think President Trump has made it pretty clear that if the investigations continue, that he will use all of the tools in the presidential toolbox to protect himself.
Do you foresee us getting any of those questions answered this week, or is that something you think he'll keep close to his chest until he has to use it?
That will be something he will keep close to his chest, and it's very tricky. Again, he sort of made the this sort of threat again to members of Congress and that sort. But again, he has to think in terms of not only in terms of what will happen this year in terms of developing public policy. He also has to think ahead to 2020 to his re-election bid. He also needs to think of the party because the actions that he may take, they may once again impact the Republican Party in the 2020 election cycle.
Another really interesting comment he made was on the topic of socialism, this coming on the heels of what's going on in Venezuela with the political turmoil there. Let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah, well,
it was an interesting transition.
Yeah, I'll say that.
It was an interesting transition. Part of that, I think, comment is in terms of understanding Venezuela. It's a very complicated and complex sort of situation down there. So just to make the simple analogy that Venezuela it's failing because it's socialist, I don't think is accurate. But I think the larger question there, as it pertains to residents of the United States, in particular residents of individual states, is that he's sending a signal that he will not support legislation that he may define as being socialist. Well, in our federalist system, what if you have individual states that would like to put in place or expand things like public transportation, health care, once again, medical care, and those sorts of things? If members of Congress see that as socialist, but maybe here in Wisconsin we don't see it as a socialist program, that now we have a real conflict. So I think it was a bold statement to make, but it lacks sort of background and detail.
Lots of topics to break down there. We are out of time, but Dr. Sheppard, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Your time right now is 6:09, and back in Madison, the city